Hello, welcome to the mini lesson for audience-centered data design from the Harnessing the Power of Data Capacity Building series, brought to you by the Michigan Health Endowment Fund in partnership with Liz G Strategy and Pivot Data Design. A quick hello from your host today, Jennifer Nolte, me from Pivot Data Design. We've organized these mini lessons to go along with the grant lifecycle, our three phases. The first, proposal, the second, grant learning, and the third, reporting. Today's video will help give you some tools and insight when it comes to reporting on your grant. So we're going to be zooming in on the third phase of the grant lifecycle. So let's talk about audience-centered data design. All in all, an important foundational thing before you enter designing anything, whether it's a chart or a dashboard, a one-pager, a slide deck, whatever it might be, is the knowledge to know that to tell a good story, you need to start with your key audience in mind, not your data, not your own personal interests. You need to think about who your key audience is. And then from their lens, think about what are all the various pieces of data that you have access to, because you likely have a lot of data that you could choose to present. So how do you choose which one is the most important? Center those decisions in your key audience. And the other reality is that every chart and deliverable doesn't work for every single audience. So let me give you a couple of examples. Let's imagine we are about a year and a half ago, during the summer, COVID was kind of full on strong. And I remember we maybe didn't know as much about mitigating COVID-19. And I remember being nervous and asking questions like, do I need to be bleaching my groceries? Like, when do I need to wear a mask and when don't I? Let's imagine we wanted to share COVID-19 data with the public to inform their daily decision-making. I'm imagining like my mom in my mind. If I center her in my mind and I look at this COVID-19 dashboard from the city of Chicago that shares a lot of pretty complex data about positivity rates, confirmed cases, daily tests performed, it's a lot. This is not necessarily, it's giving me a lot of data, but is it answering my mom's key questions about using data, right? What do I need to be doing? What should my risk level be? What is risky? What isn't? You know what I mean? How does this translate into decisions that I make in my daily life? This is probably a really great fit for journalists and researchers who are making decisions about public health, but it's not a great fit for the public. So let's, in contrast, look at a different chart that was put together by the Texas Medical Association. I know it's kind of hard to see, but you can see going from all the way to low risk to high risk, they rate a bunch of different activities of daily life. So I zoomed in on the high risk areas, and using data, they put together this graphic to inform the public on their risk levels and knowing the risk during COVID-19 and how they can translate into their daily life. This very clearly answers my mom's questions. But if we were talking to data researchers, they would be like, what's the p-value here? Where did this data come from? Is this from, you know what I mean? They would want to know all the background information. So knowing who your key audience is central to figuring out not only what chart type, but how to visualize the data and what's the story to really go in alignment with to answer their key questions. Let me go through a couple of other examples of how you might take one table of information. This comes from a grant partner in Michigan who does some really awesome trainings across the state of Michigan for LGBTQ awareness for teachers in schools. And so they do these different trainings across the state. And this is just a simple little table kind of communicating during 2019, 2020, when did they do trainings? Where was the host site? How many people came? And what was their reach? Like, of all the people that came, where were they from? So this is good. This is a lot of information. So maybe your key audience really does want to know all of these details. Even thinking about some of the best practices when it comes to data design, we can even take a first stab at redesigning this table. It's the same exact information. We just added some color to it. and removed all of the borders that were everywhere and just had one solid line underneath each line, because there's enough gap space between each of the columns to visually be able to tell that you're moving into a different section. So sometimes the overuse of borders and tables can be a little bit overwhelming. So we visualize it like this. This gives you a lot of great information. But what if your key audience mostly was interested in the when trainings happened, like throughout the year, because you were maybe presenting back to your board and you're trying to figure out your schedule of services for next year. Like, when's the best time to do trainings? Like, when did we do them the last year? How many people came to each one? When is kind of central to their key question. Maybe we take this information in this table and put it on a timeline. And you can see the workshops are color coded in green and they're kind of below the timeline, and presentations are color coded in blue and they are above the timeline. This visual supports talking a little bit more about the when in a more central way. Let me show you one last example. What if your key audience was actually most interested in where it was by reach? Like, they want to know what counties are being reached, maybe because you want to target counties that haven't participated in some of these trainings. So you need a sense of like, where is the reach of all these trainings you've been doing? Maybe you map it onto a county map of the state of Michigan, and you have a little title that says, we broadened our reach geographically, conducting our first 201 trainings ever in the UP. How exciting. And the 101 trainings are kind of the teal color, blue is 201, and both of them is orange. So it gives you a little bit of a sense of how you might change your visuals and graphics based on your audience's key questions. I hope these examples gave you some good ideas. Thank you so much for joining.